Okay, everyone, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the saying of the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage with meaningful discussion. We ask for your blessings to our daily work, that we may do it in faith with all our hearts, and help us remember to have an open heart, full of peace, love. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Members, can I get a motion and a second for the approval of the meetings from last week?
So move.
Need a second? Okay, Wayne Hartman said second. All right, thank you very much. This morning we have, starting off, Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum, Kristen Greenaway and Jeff Bogle. Are you folks on?
Thank you, Delegate Adams. I'm here. Kristen, have you joined? I don't see that Kristen has joined yet, Delegate Adams, but let me go ahead and get started. I know you have a busy agenda here. The Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum has been extremely busy over the past year, fulfilling its mission of preserving and exploring the history, culture, and environment of the entire Chesapeake Bay region. Highlighting the past year, we had the Welcome Center grand opening, which occurred on December 2nd. It was a landmark event for the museum and the town of St. Michael's and the entire region, and really marked the next chapter in the museum's history. If you haven't been there yet, we certainly invite the full delegation to experience the transformational building, its new guest amenities with storytelling through first-class exhibitions. It's really, in our mind, a crown jewel of the Chesapeake Bay region. Kristen, I see that you just joined. I was just talking about the Welcome Center grand opening. I can pass it to you if you want to talk about
thank you, Jeff.
Purchase of the CCR properties.
Yep. Well, my apologies, folks. Jeff, I'm not too sure how far you got with the Welcome Center, but I cannot impress upon you all how absolutely transformational this building is going to be, not just for the museum, but also for Eastern Shore in Maryland. It's space for innovation, tradition. It really focuses on the Chesapeake, not only shaping our personal identities, but this source of inspiration and how vital it is as an ecosystem. So it's covering so many bases. The waters are not just a resource for fisheries, they're habitats. It's an environment that people actively engage with, enjoy, and work to preserve. And also our designation as a folklife center, I'm not too sure if people are aware of this. It's been 4 years of transformational growth since 2020. It gives us the ability to create these phenomenal collaborations with community, documenting traditions, incorporating folk life into our exhibition planning. And another event that's happened, we've got a new network organizational development grant which facilitated engagement with the marketing and communications firm. And the projects that we've successfully piloted already, speakers, demonstrations, oral history documentation, this is all regular features of our festivals and programming. And this support and suggestions, this dialogue with our community engagement efforts, it really understands the importance of early collaboration with community groups, which is a principle that we're actively engaging and implementing. Oral histories with watermen, storytelling events, partnerships with community organizations. This is all about relationship building. And this is what is absolutely key to the museum's raison d'etre. We're engaging in all sorts of histories with cultures and groups in that regard. A fantastic new exhibition, Women on the Water, captures these amazing photographs of women captains who are leaving and have made such an indelible mark on the Chesapeake finally being recognized. The growth of the shipyard continues. A really historic moment in December. We graduated our first woman from our state certified shipwright apprentice program, and this is thanks to your support. This wooden boat building concept that we have, absolutely proven, is bringing a new generation committed to wooden boat craft. As Jeff mentioned, the highly strategic purchases of the Crab Claw restaurant property and Patriot, which is the steel boat, tour boat that does the tours. That vessel could have left the Eastern Shore. We've kept it at the dock, and that is, we have 85,000 visitors a year. That's an additional 20,000 people that cruise on Patriot alone that are coming to the Eastern Shore. And then I never forget to remind you all of our Rising Tide, our after-school building program. They recently launched at the end of last season. They launched a replica of an historic vessel. There's only one left, which is in our collection, of a St. Michael's scow. And this is something that Johnny Mounts will know of because he and his mum grew up sailing St. Michael's scows, and so did Johnny. So an extremely historical build there. They built everything, the sails, all the foundry work, and the sailing ship in itself. Jeff, I'll pass it back to you, please.
Thank you so much, Kristen, and just want to really thank the entire delegation for their support, and without that support, the successes that Kristen just discussed really would not be possible. It's critical that CBMM have the state's support to continue that mission and build upon the success that we've had here. We have two really discrete needs that we're asking your support for in the current fiscal year. We have two HVAC systems that are in need of immediate replacement, and the museum is without the funds to do so. These HVAC units not only provide a comfortable setting for the museum's visitors, but are critical to the maintenance of priceless objects that are stored in the two facilities in which these HVAC systems operate. Obviously, any loss or damage of these objects is really a loss of Maryland's heritage and culture. So it's critical that we make these upgrades as soon as possible to mitigate any of the risks to those objects. Each system costs approximately $1 million, so we're looking for $2 million of support to ultimately make those upgrades. The second part of our need relates to the third phase of our master plan. We've completed phase one, which is the Norman and Ellen Plummer Center for Museum Collections. Really phenomenal renovations and expansions to the museum's climate-controlled library and collections facility. Just as with the Welcome Center, if you haven't seen this renovated space, certainly invite the full delegation to come down and see it. It's really incredible. And ensures that the objects within that collection are preserved. As Kristen mentioned, we are a folk life center, so it provides the opportunity for researchers, students, and the public to come and access the collection and use a state-of-the-art scanner as well. That's now part of the building. And then phase two has been completed, which is the new Welcome Center that Kristen and I spoke about. And we're now in the planning stages of phase three, our final phase of the master plan, for which we're requesting $500,000 in planning funds. This will help to prepare the campus for the necessary climate mitigation as we look in the coming decades to ensure that we have resiliency on our waterfront campus. It will help support increased revenue streams to ensure that the museum can remain self-sustaining. It'll make critical upgrades to accessibility. That's, of course, a critical part of our mission, ensuring that the museum is accessible to all. There are certain areas that require upgrades to accessibility that will be a critical part of this next phase. And then, as Kristen mentioned, we now have a very proven model in the shipyard that not only teaches these critical shipwright skills to the next generation and preserves the culture of shipbuilding in the state of Maryland, but through the successful delivery of the Maryland Dove, shows that the museum really can deliver on its partnership with the state, as well as deliver on commercial products to really ensure that shipbuilding, and in particular wooden shipbuilding, remains an important part of Maryland's Eastern Shore. So really, we want to again thank you for all of your support. And would ask that the delegation continues to provide your support for our request. But Kristen, let me turn it back over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jeff. Just to impress upon everybody, the workforce development that is happening at the museum, not just in the shipyard. We now employ over 70 people on the Eastern Shore, and we impress upon each of you, more than happy to have discussions with you on how our impact can help support you and everything that you're doing in your region. And please come and visit. We are open for business. Would love to have you there and happy to take any questions.
Okay, Kristen and Jeff, thank you very much. And I just want to take a second and thank you very much for moving your presentation till this week. We had over 20 cabinet secretaries over the last 2 years present, and a couple of them had to change to last week, and we wanted to hear from them, and it threw us in a difficult spot. So I appreciate your flexibility. My promise to you and others that we had to change with the calendar, you'll come in early next year, and we won't have as many of the secretaries in. We'll have more time to talk about these local priorities and projects such as yours. You're a statewide asset, and we're lucky to have you on the shore. And I know you know that, hearing that from us, but because you're in our district, but everybody here on the shore loves you and appreciates what you're doing. And I know budget season's right around the corner as it relates to getting the votes in and making sure we're trying to advocate for your interests, which Jeff talked about at length this morning as well. Members, do we have any questions for the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum? Okay, I'm seeing none, Kristen, and I'm sure you and I will be in close contact over the next week or so with the budget.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Jeff. Okay, next up, we have Michael Sanderson and Dominic Buchko with the Maryland Association of Counties. Morning, Michael.
Good morning, friends. Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman, and perfectly happy to work in on your schedule wherever you can find time for us. It feels like a home game to talk to y'all. I'll offer quickly, we want to give a really quick rundown on a handful of things that MACO is involved with at the table. We too are in the middle of this politics stuff right now. So let me say a couple of things, but start by saying it has been super welcome that as we face all sorts of different issues where the state is looking to intrude on local decision making, reliably members from the shore delegation understand what that means, that a state agency is just never going to have the on the ground view that our local governments have, connecting with the community and getting input from back home. So we always welcome having a second on a lot of the things that we're raising on energy and land use issues and so forth. I'll start there really briefly and just say, we've got, as usual, 2, 3, 4 dozen different things going on that are all kind of alive at this point in session. But one of them in the energy committees has been this continuing fight over where and how do we build out solar. There's an enormous amount of pressure to put it onto every bit of farmland that you can find, ground-based solar, competing for soybeans and all the other space and so forth. It's just a tension we're in the middle of. We've been trying to resist a number of those things, but multiple different bills trying to take different slices at that apple. We're concerned about it. I think we're in an okay place, but really welcome a number of you sort of amplifying that message. Similarly, on housing, affordable housing, particularly in the built-up parts of the state, is a white-hot issue. The governor's taken a lead. We have been trying to be collaborative where we can, and I don't know yet whether that's going to pay off in legislation passing that ends up finding a middle ground on a lot of things that we're concerned about. But we're probably going to see multiple bills pass this year that deal with density, and they deal with locating sites, different kinds of things in residential areas and whatnot. We're always concerned about community input and guidance. We're hoping that being good players in a number of parts of this debate give us credibility to take some of the stuff out that really needs to come out. So I'm hopeful there, but some stuff is going to pass this year, and we probably will have some quarrels with bits of it. But local autonomy is the name of the game there. I'll mention really quickly fiscal stuff. Plans coming together. The Senate is about to move their budget plan, and a week behind it or so will be the House. The budget for this year has gotten tougher with a couple cycles of bad news, a miscount, sort of an error in calculating how many people need Medicaid service was the first shoe to fall. A state write-down of revenues just yesterday was a second shoe to fall. And what was a pretty manageable budget for this year just got a couple clicks trickier. The multi-year plan still looks very difficult. The state budget is going to be really challenged by the cost of the blueprint starting a couple years from now, but we're already at a squeeze even for this year. I'm sure you all in your committees are hearing the same thing, like a bill with a $50,000 fiscal note to the state general fund mostly is dead right now. They just don't have the capacity to do that sort of stuff. As you all know, county budgets are under very similar strain, except we're already paying for the blueprint out of cash. We don't have a bunch of money lying in the sock like the state does to say this is a future problem. It's an immediate matter of urgency for our county budgets. There's a transportation funding crisis, and no surprise, local roads and bridges are right back in the middle of that. The governor's budget reconciliation bill is looking to dial back funding through highway user revenues for local roads and bridges back to your towns, your counties. We've been fighting like dogs for over a decade to try and get back even close to being on track at that front. It's super frustrating to have the legislative services suggesting, let's just take it all the way back to 2010. Let's undo everything that a number of you have been champions on in recent years. So we thank you for that partnership. I'm hoping that we won't see the worst on that front, but transportation is the canary in the coal mine. Fiscal stuff is going to be challenging. My colleague, Dominic Butchko, is with me also. I think he can speak. He's our lead on energy and land use issues, has a couple things to highlight. We'd love to hear your questions, but I know you're anxious to hear from the congressman too, so we'll be economical with your time. Dom?
Yeah, so I'll just be very short. So on housing, I think the biggest bill that everyone's worried about is the governor's land use bill. What I can say is, at least going into session and up to this point, we think for the Eastern Shore in particular, this won't really be a bill that impacts you that much. Again, things can change, but this is a bill primarily aimed at the Big 8 jurisdictions. And so we've been working with your county leaders there to address pain points and continue the negotiations. But that's probably the biggest bill on housing and land use that's going to move. On the solar front, there's 3 bills that have come up that are particularly cause a little bit of heartburn. Those bills have all had their hearings. I don't want to be too optimistic, but I think we should be pretty good on those, relatively speaking. That being said, as Michael said, solar is a really big deal. This can go a bunch of tricky ways. So, please watch out. I think the biggest one I want to put on everyone's radar is House Bill 1046, Senate Bill 1025. If there's going to be a solar bill that's problematic and likely to move, that's probably it. Additionally, Senate Bill 1082 and House Bill 1328. That's another solar bill. It's a mess, but it could be used as a vehicle potentially. Additionally, 2 more things I want to bring up to you guys. We've been hearing a lot from our members on the Eastern Shore, but across the state about batteries and the importance of, we're going to have utility scale batteries. They present a big safety issue. MACO has right now a bill aimed at lithium ion battery safety. That bill is House Bill 468. Senate Bill 532. That is the Mako battery bill. It's currently in ECM in the House and Triple E in the Senate. That bill establishes a commission in conjunction with the PSC and a bunch of other folks to look at this and develop recommendations. This is a big issue we're trying to address. And then finally, I just want to put on your radar, Mako does have a firefighter recruitment and retention initiative. We know that whether you're career or volunteer, whatever your jurisdiction relies on, maybe it's a hybrid, we're at a crisis point in firefighter recruitment and retention. So the Mako incentives package, the bill for that is House Bill 899, Senate Bill 691. We can definitely use any extra shoulder that you guys can give into not only passing the program, but also finding some funding for the program. I'm happy to take any questions on what I just brought up or anything I might have missed.
Okay, Dominic and Michael, thank you very much. And we do have some time certainly for questions. This is an important subject for all of our members. Delegate Ernst?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michael, with these solar bills and what have you, when Mako brings a bill and you guys come in and support it, typically that has the support of a big heavy vote. Am I right? In Mako?
That's right.
Okay. What concerns me is that I know in my district we work pretty well with our counties. And the support that we get from them, we don't typically put in bills that are going to be adversely affected. Are we missing something with some of these bigger counties? Because you see where these bills are coming from. And I don't know if they're focusing on Mako itself and what the counties really want. But typically when we lost our highway user dollars back when I was a commissioner, and I mean, we didn't want to do that, but that was done up here. And I was wondering if there's anything we could do to help out and facilitate to push some of these bills away from coming out. Any suggestions?
Yeah, I'm not sure I have the magic solution on that front. We have a challenge as an organization when a bill comes in that we think is hostile to our local interests or serving our communities and so forth. Sometimes we really have no choice but to say there's nothing in this bill we can work with. We've got to oppose the bill, and we try and blow it up. We tend to get more traction by saying, hey, there's a key element here that we could work with, but these pieces need to come out and these other pieces need to change. Otherwise, we would oppose. Maryland, the General Assembly says the way you sign up to do that is support with amendments. Folks outside of Annapolis hear that as you support the bill, and that's a tough message to carry when it's a bill we really don't like the core. I think it's more art than science trying to do that, but we get mileage by saying we'll come to the table and work on stuff. We'll be in the work group or try and solve this for next year or whatnot. I know that sometimes comes off like we're being soft. We're trying to be collaborative where we can, because I don't know how to stop the hundreds and hundreds of bills that come in every session that we have to oppose.
Well, I appreciate you coming in and your comments yesterday. But if you ever have something while we're in committee, if you have some suggestions on some amendments we didn't think of, or we try to fight these bills, as you know, we'd welcome to help. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Welcome. Thanks so much.
Michael, while I'm waiting for a couple more questions, if we have them, I'd like to ask a question of you. We see the budget. I think we know that there are tough times coming ahead, but it's not the first time in recent history that we've had some budget difficulties. In the mortgage-backed security crisis in 2007, 2008. I came in 2014, and one of the things that the leadership showed me was what a budget looks like during very difficult economic times. And one of the things I remarked on was the fact that the teacher pensions got shifted to the counties in that 2010 area. And what my worry is that this budget that's coming up over the next 2 to 3 years, it's not just this one, is not only to augment what you're saying is going to be a stressful situation. It could be a repeat of what we went through 15 years ago. And do your members, especially on the shore, have that kind of perspective to know what it looks like when we say unfunded mandate? The state may not have any other choice but to take these education shortfalls, and that's what this budget shortfall is going to be in 2 to 3 years. It's all about education. Are your members ready for what's possible? Have they seen the history of what's a budget reconciliation event up here in Annapolis, how it affects your members?
Mr. Chairman, you smell what's cooking. The honest answer there is almost half of our elected officials across county governments are in their first term right now. 40-some% of our local elected leaders only have experience of the last 3 or 4 years with this kind of papered over economy and healthy state budgets and surpluses and so forth. And this will be the first exposure for a lot of them, for suddenly their county budget is in crisis and maybe an extra layer coming from the state as they dig out of whatever hole they're in. That happens on the regular. If you've got 12 years of experience, you've been through it. But if you've only got 2 years of experience, you've never seen anything like this. So there's a little cold shower coming for a number of our local leaders to find out that come April, their problem may have one extra layer on it because of something that happens at the state. I don't know if it'll be terrible this year, but the numbers for the state look really bad over the course of the next 2-3 years. So stuff like that might easily be coming. We're doing our best to be ready. Oh, you're on mute.
I wasn't on the appropriations committee, but the nonverbal, when they announced the Board of Revenue Estimates was going to make their presentation to the joint committees, Ways and Means as well. I mean, that was the nonverbal is it's sobering. So even if it's a $250 million shortfall this year, and that's not the real bad one, clearly this time next year, we're going to have some difficult times. And I appreciate, let me just leave it with you this, because I don't see any other questions from members. Thank you for your leadership. I know your association represents the big counties, but you represent all of our counties on the shore as well. And that balance that I see in our committee is very thoughtful. And we appreciate the fact that you have to work and negotiate through the lens of what Annapolis politics is in reality against your membership that quite often can also be divided on issues. And we appreciate that balance that you in fact do every day when we see in our committee. So thank you for that.
Thank you for that.
Okay, I don't see any further questions, so thank you very much for your time.
Very much, everyone.
Next up, we have our Congressman Andy Harris. It's a pleasure to have you, Congressman. I believe most of our members are here. Glad to have you, proud to have you, and the floor is yours for as long as you would like it, plus questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, we've got a vote in about 15 minutes or so. But I'll run through a few things and then certainly answer any questions you have. Probably the biggest news out of Washington and important every year is that the USDA appropriations bill passed on Wednesday. The USDA is basically level funded from last year. No large cuts. We preserved research on avian flu, things that are important to the district. The farm bill, though, is still that's the authorization bill, is still being negotiated. I would be very surprised if we got a new farm bill before next year. As we get closer to the election and it appears that there's a real possibility of an administration change, there will be a real hesitation to pass a 5-year farm bill that would basically go through the next the entire next administration. So I think they're just going to be a stopgap measure. Whether that stopgap measure goes to December, goes to February, March, we'll see. But the farm bill, again, we appropriated to last year's farm bill, the last farm bill, which is now 6 years old. It's a pretty good farm bill. A lot of the risk management programs are still pretty good. So I don't think that's a problem if we have to just extend the current farm bill and then renegotiate one next year, again with what may be a new the ground may look very different in Washington next year. In that USDA appropriations bill, two important things. One is that we have snakehead funding again for the control of snakeheads. We got that into the bill probably 3 years ago now, and we work with Maryland to attempt to control the snakehead population. Of more importance is I was able to really extend a program in the USDA that helps fund small processors, and that original program was for meat and fish. I got an extension basically for fish alone and really for invasive species fish alone, which is, as I remember, we used to call them in the Maryland General Assembly the red-haired Eskimo. That's blue catfish in the Chesapeake Bay. So we're going to have $3 million to help processing facilities get established to deal with the blue catfish, to attempt to make commercialization of that catch a reality, because I think that's in essence, that's really the only way we're ever going to solve that problem. And I think that's a good start. With regards to other issues for the shore, you know, we had put windmill language in the House bill to study marine mammals, the killing of marine mammals, or potential kills of marine mammals by offshore wind. Unfortunately, the majority stripped it out, wouldn't even agree to public hearings by NOAA on that topic. A little surprised by that, but we'll try again in this year's appropriations process again, which actually will probably begin next week or the week after. So we're gonna make another run at it. With the additional $255 million revenue hole that you know was announced yesterday, the 2-year additional revenue hole. I would hope that Maryland is not going to increase subsidies of these incredibly expensive offshore wind projects by Maryland taxpayers, because I think, you know, again, I think it would be a foolish use of dollars, especially when the revenue outlook looks so poor for Maryland versus what their revenue projections were. And I think that electric bills are already too high, so I hope the Public Service Commission, or actually Maryland General Assembly, would have to authorize the Public Service Commission to increase the amount that can be passed on to electric consumers in the state. That shouldn't be the purpose of building energy facilities. We can build natural gas energy facilities, which would actually lower Maryland ratepayers' electric bills. I think it would be just a bad policy move to increase Maryland's electric bills when they have already way outpaced inflation over the last 2 years. The one last topic I'm just going to bring up and then answer any questions is a topic I think of great concern brought to the forefront by a couple of cases in Georgia, the famous Lake and Riley case. But what you have to realize that basically the same thing happened in Maryland. With the case of Granados Trejo in Montgomery County, who was arrested twice on theft charges in Montgomery County, detainers issued, released twice, and is now rearrested for a murder conspiracy on the 2-year-old and the 2-year-old Baltimore child. The fact of the matter is that when these illegal immigrants who have been arrested on crimes and ICE has issued a detainer, if they are released in Montgomery County or Howard County or Baltimore County or, any sanctuary county, they can end up on the shore because they will be fugitives from the police. And that is not something that is going to be geographically isolated, which actually was the case in Montgomery County releasing Granados Trejo. The crime was not committed in Montgomery County. The fatal crime was not committed; it was committed elsewhere. And honestly, that was the exact same situation. It was 2 theft arrests. Same thing that happened with Lake and Riley's killer in Georgia. So we passed this week. We passed a bill that would require ICE to actually include thefts as one of the crimes for which they will issue detainers and will deport illegal immigrants. I think it's ridiculous to wait until an illegal immigrant kills someone or commits a violent crime to deport them. The fact of the matter is that crime starts. This is the old broken windows policy that Rudy Giuliani had. He says you have to prosecute low-level crime, because if you don't, it turns into high-level crime, and it did in Lake and Riley's case, and it did in the case of that 2-year-old again. With Montgomery County having released one of the 5 people now held for the murder of that child. This is not new to Montgomery County. They had another incident where they had actually someone who went to prison, who was sentenced for 5 years for accessory to murder, served 18 months, accessory to murder. A detainer issued, and Montgomery County released the person. Now, fortunately, because of the press uproar, that person was rearrested. But the bottom line is, I urge you to do whatever you can to make sure that local authorities in Maryland cooperate with ICE detainers. This crime wave will only get worse as the 6 to 10 million people who have been admitted into this country without proper vetting over the last 3 years, as they enter the population and they move among us, There are certainly criminals among them. We know the Venezuelan gang members are crossing the border and they are released into our interior. Local jurisdictions have to cooperate with ICE on detainers. ICE is not, under this administration, is not deporting all the people they ought to, but at least we ought to be deporting people who commit crimes. With that, I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Congressman. Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Congressman. Good to see you
morning.
this morning. You had a late night, but I see you're all juiced up and ready to go this morning, and that's good. Appreciate your comments on these immigration issues. Certainly, they need to be at our forefront. But I want to shift over to you. You know where I'm going is with the Chesapeake Bay. There was a DNR winter survey of blue crab report that just came out. They haven't done the survey, won't be ready until May, but there were some different topics in that particular bit of information. One of them really caught my eye was this 2023 study that found that invasive blue catfish in the James River ate 440 tons of blue crab. That's what the survey indicated. And I mean, we've been hearing about it in the Bay that, you know, like 25% of their diet is blue crab, but that's a staggering number to see in the James River. 440 tons of blue crab has been eaten by the invasive blue cats. And one thing we discovered this year, this past fall, because that we never saw before, these blue catfish are growing so fast that their diets are changing. I mean, they'll eat anything that moves and things that don't. We found that this fall they started eating oyster spat in the lower bay, and that had never occurred before. And as you know, this was the third highest natural spat set in Maryland history this year. So it's very concerning that we have a year where the recruitment was so good, and yet now we have an additional problem that we never knew existed with these blue catfish that are actually starting to feed on oyster spat as well. So that's a very concerning thing. So these are two huge industries in the state, being, with oysters and blue crabs. And, we've all been beating the drum on this issue of the damage being done by blue catfish, but now it's really starting to get serious into other fisheries. And as you know, the governor declared the disaster on the invasive blue cats and asked for relief from the federal government, and the Department of Commerce rejected that, said they weren't financially high enough number or something. I'm going like, I guess they'll wait till we eat everything here and then it'll be a disaster. But anything you can do there to help us with this issue. I know that Keith does a great job representing you on the shore. He knows this issue well, but this inspector issue just is a huge, huge, huge problem. And I agree that processing is going to be the way out of this. Eating is how we got to get out of this. But people aren't willing to get into it because of the problems associated with USDA. I've actually talked to people that I thought were the right people in the right place to get into the processing, and the more they dug into it and talking with other people, they just weren't willing to take that chance because the requirements and the inspection irregularities between inspectors is at such a level that they just are not willing to take that risk. And I mean, I know where fish were actually shipped from Rock Hall to Baltimore or Jessup in 500-pound containers. The fish were alive. They were literally flipping out of the boxes. They got to Jessup. The inspector turned them down because he said, these don't smell right. And they were alive. So, just one comment. And then the wholesaler on the other end, they won't touch them because they don't want to affect their business. So this whole issue of an USDA inspection, and I know you've heard it a million times, but I can't stress the magnitude of what a problem this is, because that is really in the forefront of why these people don't want to get into this processing, because it is just, the juice is just not worth the squeeze. And it's sad, because we're watching the devastation of this bay at the same time, on the other hand. And, I know you're the chair of the Ag Subcommittee, I believe, right?
Yeah, on appropriations, that's right.
Right. And just hoping that you can convince some of your colleagues of just how much damage is going on here, and just how much of a problem this USDA inspection process is. It's not uniform. That's one of the big problems. They're all over the place. You got to fly on the wall. You got to shut down the operation. It's ridiculous at times. And talking with these people, when you get a prospective processor and they start talking to others that are in it, they tell them, I wish I never got in this processing. So it's really a big problem that we've got to encounter and get past if we're going to really challenge this catastrophe really that we're facing. So that, I don't want to beat that drum anymore. I know Keith does a great job, don't get me wrong, but I just want to make that known. I do the same thing with the senators, federal senators as well. So just can't beat that message enough. And the other thing is the Atlantic States Marine Fishery made some decisions here recently that have been devastating to the charter boat industry in Maryland. And basically, they have hurt that business by 75%. What I'm getting from most charter boat captains, that when it took it from 2 fish to 1, people aren't going to pay $600 to $1,000 a trip to go catch 1 fish. And guys who have been doing this 30, 40 years have seen their regular customers that book 5, 6 trips a summer are booking 1. And they're very concerned that not only the fact that they lost their trophy season this year, that was a state regulation where it took the trophy season out, which cost the state about $1 million. But now on top of that, they've been cut from 2 fish to 1. Over what we're talking about is 50,000 fish. And I can tell you, 50,000 fish in the scheme of things is very little. That's a very small number in the fishery, but they lost 50% of their business because of really a miscalculation. So the Atlantic States Marine Fishery made this decision, and Maryland is not willing to go out of compliance to help these guys. There was a 7% cut to the commercial fishery as well, but that charter boat industry is going to really see some hard times, and that hurts all of our small communities, up and down the bay, wherever these charter boat fleets are docked, and the restaurant business, the sporting goods stores, the hotels and motels, they are going to be affected without question in these small communities. So just want you to be aware of that, and keep your eye on that whole issue as well. So I could go on for another hour, but I'll leave it at that. I know you got to vote, and I appreciate you being with us this morning, and thank you for what you do.
All right. No, thank you, Delegate. Let me go ahead and just briefly respond to those 2 things. I am aware of the Atlantic States Marine Fishery determination. I'm aware that it affects it adversely affects the charter industry. I'm not sure. We're looking into whether there's some way to get a federal hook into it in some way. If the state's not willing to do what needs to be done, maybe we can do it at the federal level. We're looking into that. With regards to the blue catfish, look, I had language in that would have allowed reversion back basically to FDA inspection. The Southern senators are, insisted on stripping it out, not only stripping it out, but putting language in the Senate appropriation that actually said that there is a good reason to have this separate inspection. And we know the good reason is to protect catfish farmers in the South. I mean, that's it. So the other thing that the only alternative is to say, okay, we understand that USDA processing can be cumbersome, especially if it's done blue catfish processing, if it's done in a facility that does other species as well. But as you know, Nick on Tillman, I mean, he does only blue catfish. He hasn't had a problem with his inspectors. He wants to get an automatic filleting machine. Again, I think what we need to do, Jay, is you're right. We can't because of the requirement for the fish to be alive and not to be, not to be fresh when they arrive at the processing facility. I think the solution, if we don't get the inspection regimen changed, is to build more facilities to allow them to have money that they may need to buy the automatic filleting machines. And then the other thing that we're working on and we were successful with is to get the USDA to change some of their food requirements for federal food purchase which right now are only allow farm-raised catfish. Again, I know exactly where that came from. There's no scientific evidence that a farm-raised catfish is safer than a wild caught. In fact, some people think wild caught are probably actually better than the farm-raised in terms of health. So we're going to have that change. So we then believe we can open the downstream market. So if we have the processors, there are more around the bay, and we have the ability to sell them into the federal, whether it's food banks, whether it's the federal purchases for the military. When we believe we can sell them into that chain, that's the only way that I think it's going to work right now, because these Southern senators are dug in on USDA doing this inspection. So we have to think about how we're going to do it so that again, the person who's taken the chance on building that processing facility can make money. Everybody can make money. The waterman, the processor. And I think that's the solution, because look, it's all tied together. As you know, you're right. 50,000 fish in the greater sense thing is probably one morning's feeding of blue catfish on rockfish. I mean, that's bottom line, right? Right. I mean, right. So it's all interconnected. So if you have ideas, if you know anyone who given the scheme that, look, you're going to have to build a facility, dedicated inspector. Again, Nick says it's not a problem. As long as it's dedicated, the inspector knows they have to be there. I think if there are problems with them, believe me, I will bring it to the attention of USDA if their inspectors are being unreasonable. So again, just be aware that $3 million is available. I suspect that with the cost of a plant, we may be able to help 3, 4, 5 plants become economically viable with those grants.
Yeah, and Marbitco's got some funding as well. I mean, there's money around for this. It's not that it's not there, but these guys are just reluctant to make the leap into the investment side because of all this sideline stuff that's going on, and it's a shame that Southern lobby has such a hold on all this, because it's very problematic. But is there, in my final question, I know I got that Chris is giving me the evil eye over there. Is there any way that we can get like a carve out because of the invasive species category? Can we get an exception, is what I'm saying? Because I mean, certainly we are seeing the damage. It's not like a normal catfish.
Sure.
So
that's exactly what my language was, but the language I put in the bill, which I thought was very reasonable, that's exactly the carve out we had. We had a carve out. Again, it had to be kind of red-haired Eskimo because of international trade agreements. But the way we wrote it, it was invasive species. It basically would have only covered, and it would allow that flexibility in inspection to be an FDA deemed inspection was adequate only for invasive. That's exactly the language I had. Again, rejected by the Southern senators.
Well, I appreciate it. These common sense things don't go well in government.
Thank you, Delegate.
Thanks again.
Okay. Congressman, before I go to the next question, you did say you had to leave at 9:45. It's 9:49. Shall I call another question, or do you have to run?
Yeah, it's fine. They have not rung the bells for the vote yet.
I'm familiar with bells. Senator.
Chris, did you call on me? Congressman Harris, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I
Okay.
can.
I think I was called on. Great to see you. Good morning, sir. How you doing?
Good.
I want to bring a couple things to your attention. Thank you for being here. The Atlantic States Flyways Commission has, you heard about the striped bass. So the commercial fishing industry is about to take a hit, which is going to affect tourism, dock prices, stuff like that. There's another thing that's looming that's a big deal is this AP goose season, the goose hunting season. We had a 45-day two-bird season last year. This year, and this is a commission that's controlled by the state of Maryland. We chair the commission. They've come back and given us two options of a 30-day one-bird season or a 30-day two-bird season. And considering we just had 45 days of two birds, to be given a 30-day season is just unacceptable for so many different users of that season. It's going to have a big effect on the economy on the shore. And it's very controversial and it's very difficult because that commission sets the limits. And if there's anything you can do to help us at least get some attention or maybe a reconsideration of that 30-day season, that would be tremendous. It is becoming, you'll hear about it in the next couple of weeks. And it's a big deal. The 30-day season is a conservation tool that has been used in the past just when the breeding pairs get to a certain number to make sure we don't go to a moratorium again. And to the best of my knowledge, we're nowhere near that. And so I'm sure when you're home, people are going to be talking to you about this. I want to make sure you're aware that that's a big problem, along with what's going on with the commercial fishing. I want to thank you very much for your help with TRAP and their efforts down there. And we'd like to invite you to come by sometime. And I think the folks there would like to talk to you to make sure you know what their plans are and what's going on in TRAP. And lastly, I just emailed to Keith, and hopefully it will get to you. We've done an outline. We've been working on oyster sanctuaries, you've heard so much about this, especially when you're home. But we've done an outline of the oyster sanctuary data compiled by the Department of Natural Resources. That data shows that 38 of our 51 oyster sanctuaries are failures. And that's not a fun thing. I don't like putting things down, but look, the science is there, and it says they're silted over. These were productive oyster bottom that were put into sanctuaries back in 2012, 2013, 2014, and they were supposed to grow, and they were supposed to actually become three-dimensional and come out of the water and all this other stuff because the harvesting was targeted as the cause of preventing them from growing. And that's contrary to what the science shows right now, because the areas that are Fishing Bay, Broad Creek, they're the most popular areas. More importantly, we have these major restoration areas. We put over 30 million, close to $40 million into Harris Creek. And Harris Creek is not even listed as one of the successful oyster sanctuaries. The Bay Foundation put out a report a week ago saying oyster on the half shell. They want to double down on the sanctuary program. The Department of Natural Resources hasn't embraced that, but I want to make sure that you have these numbers and statistics. So when you hear about this in Washington, you can actually show people, no, the numbers don't reflect that this sanctuary system, the way they do it in Maryland, works. Maryland is different than Virginia. Virginia has rotational harvest. They keep these bottoms open, they keep them moving, and they're controlled. And I just want to make sure you knew that document was coming to you today.
Well, thank you, Senator. No, I'll look for it pretty clearly. We've got to figure out the solution for oysters, and pretty clearly, it's not sanctuaries. I mean, it has not. Look, when I was in the Maryland Senate, a decade and a half ago, we were talking about how sanctuaries were going to save the oyster industry. But it's again, as you say, the majority of them probably are failing. I think that working the bottom in a sanctuary is important. I don't know how the federal government is going to get involved to kind of push it in that direction. But we do need. We need to push it in that direction. That's the bottom line. So, what if you can think of ways that we can get a federal hook into it? Let me know.
Well, a lot of that major sanctuary, the major restoration funding came from NOAA. So a lot of that $40 million was federal money that was put in. And I just want to make sure you have that information. And also I promised to give that to Senator Cardin and Van Hollen. We just had a hearing on this last week, so we've just started releasing it. And I'm sending it to their office today also. And we'll be in touch to try to set up a time where you can stop by TRAP, because I know everybody would like to talk to you and kind of show you what's going on around there. So thank you, sir.
Sure, sure. And on the oyster issue, you know, if there's ongoing funding, we'll have to seek out where it is, and then of course, as you know, we can put report language in an appropriations committee report urging the whatever organization is funding it to consider that data, and we can get pretty specific. You can work with us on exactly what language we should be inserting and where. But you know, that's the advantage of sitting on the appropriations committee, is you can put report language in that that can affect how the federal government spends these dollars.
If there's a subcommittee staff person you think would be helpful for us to share this with also, I'd be happy to forward that over to them directly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congressman, thank you very much. I'm going to make a quick comment, but before you have to go, and if you have to go, just let me know, and I'll.
No, they did ring the bells about a minute ago, but that's all right.
All right. Well, let me just say this real quick. There is that bill for offshore wind. Basically, what they're going to be doing is allowing the Public Service Commission to reopen their proceedings limited to the revised schedule sizes or pricing of the previously approved projects. We've tried to get them to amend the bill to also consider siting, try to get these wind turbines further offshore. Their rationale for not accepting that amendment is that BOEM is the deciding factor into whether these get recited within the wind energy areas. So I would just ask you to, with your leadership, and you have led on this, and we appreciate all that, but maybe try to work with BOEM to help them understand that there seems to be an opportunity when they reopen these proceedings to discuss the siting issue, and maybe try to get BOEM and Public Service Commission in a room together to figure this out, because Ocean City can't afford to have wind turbines 11 miles offshore, as you well know. I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Look, as that bill winds its way through the General Assembly, I would suggest you offer an amendment that says they can't increase the ratepayers' share of it.
Yes.
To go from the 150. I mean, look, let's look on the board. Who wants your electric rates to go up? Make it painful if they're going to do it. But the other thing, the problem with going further offshore, and this is a pretty interesting point, is there was a second set of leases. There was a second set of leases that were proposed further offshore, and the Department of Defense stopped it because they said it was not consistent with national security. So, look, I'm intrigued by that. Because if it wasn't good for national security 30 miles offshore, how is it okay 15 miles offshore? So this is where this is heading right now. Now the Department of Defense has taken a position on further offshore. We think it's time to, and we are urging the department to take another look, and BOEM to take another look at the defense implications closer to shore. But with regards to the Public Service Commission, I think you ought to try to not have them solve this problem by passing costs on to the ratepayer.
I agree. Thank you very much. All
right, Thank you.
Yep. Have a good day. Okay, members, next up we have Beth Hill Johansson with Maryland Forest Association. We're on time. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm going to try to share my screen here. Doesn't look like it's letting me. There we go. Okay, can everyone see?
We can see it.
Okay, so good morning. Thank you, Chairman Adams and delegation members, for allowing us to present to you today. As you guys know, MFA is a nonprofit organization that represents the forest community statewide, or as I like to say, anyone who lives, works, or plays in the forest. We are all conservation-minded people who want to see forest remain as forest, healthy, viable forest, by providing diverse economic and environmental benefits to all. And we believe that this is best accomplished through education. One of our focus areas has been changing public perception of our sector. So all of the folks pictured are folks from the Eastern Shore, but we highlighted people statewide. It's an ongoing effort, and it inspired the American Loggers Council to launch a similar national campaign after visiting with us in Annapolis. So just released, I'm proud to share with you the second in their video series titled, "Who Are Loggers?"
We're loggers, small family, multi-generational businesses keeping the forests healthy, creating jobs, and supporting our communities. We're up before the sun rises, managing the natural resources in a sustainable manner for today and tomorrow.
My parents are loggers. I'm a generational logger. I saw my parents and the responsibilities they had and the jobs that they gave to the families, and I always felt that responsibility too. So I've worked in that office for them since I was young.
My daddy was a logger. Took over my dad's operation in 2000. I'm a 6th generation logger.
My great grandpa logged, my grandpa logged, my dad logged, and then I logged, and now my boys are logging.
I just kind of bounced in and out and worked on skidders and kind of did whatever my dad needed out in the woods. I'm a 3rd generation logger from a little town called Canyon, Minnesota, where my family's homesteaded since 1917.
The stereotypical logger, I believe they most likely think it's just a group of men, but it's collaboration within a team. I'm not intimidated by being a female in a predominantly male industry. I wish more women would get involved.
We employ 20-some families in Plymouth County. Most of them have kids in our schools, and they play Little League with my kids, and we're a tight-knit community, and it's a good, honest living.
This is what I like to do. It's my passion. I like logging. Like I say, it's in my blood. It's in the generation I came, growing up with.
It's critically important to pass it on to the next generation. I have cut the same property my dad cut and my grandpa cut. And our son now, 24, and our daughter, 20, they're gonna be harvesting it here. Probably within the next 10 years, we're gonna be hitting the same spots over again.
We've become mechanized, been using chainsaws every day, which has provided a safer environment for our crews.
The safety aspect is better.
Everyone has pictures in their heads of logging from 1910. That's just not the case anymore. That's not how we do business. It's not how we operate.
If logging cease, they're gonna see a big change in this world.
It's whether it's from toilet paper to high-end magazines to the house that you go into, the doors you close in your house. It's extremely important.
Loggers and our forest management teams are environmentalists.
It's a way of life, and and for us, being out in the environment, and taking care of where we live and fireproofing, and making a living at the same time.
I've been logging for 33 years. Been falling trees for 37 years. I am a logger.
I am a logger. Hi, I'm Michelle, I'm a log truck driver.
I'm a logger. I'm a Texas logger. Proud to be a logger.
I am a logger.
I am a logger.
I am a logger.
We're loggers.
So those are my people, and I think that they knocked it out of the park. So as you know, public opinion influences political opinion influences public policy. And we need public and political support to change things for the forestry sector. So here in Maryland, we've been experiencing declining markets for decades. Our Western Maryland loggers and landowners just took another big hit last week with the announcement of the West Virginia-based Allegheny Wood Products closure. So loggers were given no notice and were told to clean up all logs on deck and stop cutting. Over 850 direct jobs will be lost, and the ripple effect is anticipated to be worse than the Luke Mill shutdown. So our forest will take a hit too. Let me show you how. So the guy in the video that said if logging ceased, you're going to see a big change in this world. And that's, exactly correct. So I think we can all agree that healthy forests are not dying forests. So as you can see on the graph sourced from the latest Maryland DNR Forest Action Plan, a decrease in growth coincides with a reduction in harvest and an increase in tree mortality. So dead trees are not a sign of a vigorous forest, nor is it what I would call conservation or the wise use of a resource. In a previous slide, I talked about who MFA is, but I always think it's important to mention who we are not, which is land clearers or development. Foresters and biologists also agree that we need diverse forests with various species and age class distributions across the landscape. So this graph shows that forests in Maryland are aging. So there's always lots of talk about old growth forests, but we need young forest as well. So our bird populations, American woodcock, warblers, quail, grouse, turkeys, DNR are doing turkey surveying right now, are all declining and could benefit from early successional habitats comprised of young trees and native shrubs. You can't get these young forests without logging, without harvesting happening on the landscape. This slide, I think, is pretty telling. So most of you are familiar with the Hughes Center, their technical study. It basically showed that forest loss was happening mostly in central Maryland, no surprise. But the one surprise is that on the lower shore, where we have really strong markets for saw logs, piling, pulpwood, etc., is also the only region in the state that had a gain in forest cover. So it proves that strong markets give landowners enough confidence to retain and expand forest land. I don't think that Mary Beth is on this call, but I just want to give a shout out to her whenever she talks about District 38. She includes us in her 4 Fs: forestry, fishing, farming, and fun. I don't know if she does it in that order, but I really love her for including us in that. I want to highlight a few projects that we're involved in right now. So the Nassawongo Interpretive Trail is a collaboration between MFA, the Nature Conservancy, and DNR. It's a site where within an hour or even less, you can see all stages of forestry, ranging from a recent clear cut to a thin forest, even old growth areas. So this was the brainchild of Joe, our board president that you'll be hearing from later, who has been taking SU environmental ed students to the site for several years. So the illustrations on the left exemplify what will be seen on the signs and will be accompanied by an explanation of each stand and its benefits. On the far right corner, there's a part of a display at the Bay Friendly Farm Store in the Junior Achievement Center. So the storefront is a collaboration with a number of other ag organizations, such as, Lindsay Thompson. I think she was on earlier on the call. It's a first Junior Achievement Center to ever feature farming and forestry. So 10,000 students a year from across the shore will visit the center annually. Do we think all of them will become foresters? No, but they will walk away with a knowledge of the profession by learning to pace, measure trees, calculate volumes, and understand how intertwined farming and forestry are. So really cool stuff. We also assisted the Maryland Clean Energy Center with a tour of wood energy facilities in Vermont. So wood doesn't work everywhere, but where it does work, it works very, very well. So the tour included stops at apartment buildings, schools, universities, county buildings, factories, and they all boasted about how they transitioned from fossil fuels, saved money, improved forests, and supported the local economy. In doing so, they were all proud to be part of a climate solution. So the young man pictured in the oval in the center owned a glove factory, and he was a great example of how renewable sources can complement each other. They use solar for electricity, and the owner said when it was time for him to replace his aging oil-fueled boiler, he could either stay committed to fossil fuels for another 30 years, which is the typical lifespan of the systems, or switch to a high-efficiency wood pellet system. He made the switch and is completely satisfied and encourages others to do the same. So wood energy will continue to be something that we promote and ask you to safeguard in the legislature. DNR is leading by example, having just installed a pellet system at Cypress Branch State Park. Garrett County and Frostburg University have feasibility studies underway currently. We also created an online directory by regions to improve supply chain coordination. So our work over the past year or so has been greatly funded by the Rural Maryland Council and the Maryland Department of Commerce, and it's been specifically focused on implementing the 9 initiatives and 53 goals outlined in the Economic Adjustment Strategy. The number one recommendation following the publication was to start a Forest Products Council to ensure that the plan's recommendations would be implemented and updated as needed. So we are currently focused on what that will look like, who needs to be involved. It will be a broad spectrum of agencies, stakeholders, and organizations. And this effort may need the legislature's support. So stay tuned with that. And I am going to briefly turn it over to my board president, Joe Henson, for a few seconds.
Good morning, everybody. Just briefly, legislatively, it's been a fairly quiet year. There was one bill that really gave me some heartburn. That was Senate Bill 653, House Bill 1101. That bill would have broadened standing to bring environmental lawsuits against anyone who felt they had been injured, impacted to a person's health, the use and enjoyment of the environment, including a negative impact to aesthetics, recreational, conservational, and economic interest. That would have opened the floodgates to all sorts of environmental litigation and would have required companies and agencies who would be defendants in those actions to lawyer up at great expense, loss of time. And just yesterday evening, I learned that that bill has now been amended in a way that really resolves my concerns. And today I'm going to let the sponsors know and y'all know that we appreciate that. And I think we've fended off something here that would have totally been very disruptive. The other thing that's worth mentioning is, I can't say too much about it, but we're exploring some business expansion opportunities that actually have international humanitarian implications. And if this all comes together, you'll have reason to be very, very proud of an Eastern Shore company. And I hate to tease you like that, but that's all I can say about it at this point. Hopefully within about the next 6 months, things will come together and we'll be ready for a great announcement. Beth mentioned the self-guided tour out at Nassau Longo. We'll put that in place, have it operational, hopefully by middle of the summer. And when we do, we want to, I know some of you have been on that trail already. And when we do, we're certainly going to invite everybody to a ribbon cutting and take a look at it. I think it'll be a very significant contribution to forestry education here on the shore and something that we'd like to duplicate across the state. And just lastly, over the past couple of years, there have been lots of discussions about renewable energy credits for biomass. We resolved a legislative or a legal issue about how to define qualified biomass with the Public Service Commission, and we've solved some engineering issues, and we have now sold for the first time in Maryland renewable energy credits for thermal biomass. So that's a big step, and we hope to expand that to other businesses, including the agricultural industry across the state. So that's about it. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Joe, you've left us a cliffhanger for the last delegation meeting this year. I'm excited to hear what the news is when it comes up.
Well, I'm excited to tell you about it as soon as we put it together.
I like it. I like it. So Beth, we'll open it up to questions to you and Joe. What I will say is, at this point in session, you mentioned Mary Beth Carosa, our senator. She's missed the last couple of Fridays. It's so busy here in Annapolis, and I know her committee's working. I think we're all working overtime, but there's something particular going on in that committee, and I know she would want to be here to hear the thanks on that. And I think you understand why it's difficult at this point in time to have everybody make these meetings, and I'll leave it there. Members, do we have any questions for for the group? Beth, I'll let you have a final word. You're going to say something, then we'll move on to the next subject.
Yeah, no, I just want to say that I'm thankful for the open communication that I have with all of the Eastern Shore delegation. And, I have to say, Joe mentioned that it's not been a very busy legislative session for us this year, but I think, I have that to contribute to the relationships that I have with, folks like you and just raising awareness of the forestry sector. So thank you guys for always, being there to listen and try to understand our issues. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Okay, thank you very much. And next up on the calendar is the Beach to Bay Area Heritage. Kristen Goller, Lisa Challenger. Good morning.
Good morning. Kristen, are you online and good?
I was. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to join you today to share some information about the Beach Bay Heritage Area. I'm the current chair of the organization, but the real presenter this morning is Lisa Challenger, who's a familiar face to many of you all. She's our executive director. And Lisa, I'll hand it over to you.
All righty. Well, thank you very much for squeezing us into this heavy agenda today. I wanted to also call out a couple of board members who are joining the call. We have a Mona Margarita, who is a businesswoman, owns the River Gem B&B in Pocomoke City, and Mindy Burgoyne, who is our regional rep for the Department of Commerce. So thanks, ladies, for being on the call. We also may see Ariane Hofstedt, who is the program administrator for the Heritage Areas Authority. A lot of times they have a whole state perspective, and I thought she might enjoy just hearing from us and what we're doing specifically for the Beach to Bay Heritage Area. I know she was going to try to join, but it might be late. So I can share my video. Okay, share my screen. Nope. What happened? Are we there?
You got it.
Okay. Somehow I minimize things, but okay, as long as you can see it. So the Heritage Areas program, there are 13 heritage areas and we are one of them. We are celebrating our 30th anniversary this year. So we were certified by the state back in 2004, and our mission is really to preserve, promote, and protect the natural, historic, and cultural resources of the Lower Shore. We did an economic impact study a few years ago with the Heritage Areas Authority, showing that approximately 3,000 jobs are supported by the heritage tourism industry, generating 30 million in tax revenues. And that is just for the Beach to Bay. When we look at the entire Eastern Shore, that number jumps to almost 5,000 jobs and 48.2 million in tax revenues. So we produce an annual report every year. This is just to show our members and the public what we are doing with the heritage area funding and funding from other sources. We send out any newsletter to folks that every month that tells everyone what we're doing and offering grant opportunities. And we did a African American Heritage self-guided driving tour brochure and received to date about 1,300 specific direct mail requests through some advertising that we did. But we have gone through more than 5,000 of those brochures. It was extremely successful. We're working with the Delmarva Public Media there at the Salisbury University on some cultural and heritage programming. And we received some funding to do new interpretive signs and created these really cool hollow twins. It's sort of an augmented reality for some sites where people can really get a more immersive experience in what they're seeing. But this is one of the signs that we are putting in at Pocomoke City at the Sturgis One Room School. We are working with Ocean City, Salisbury, and Crisfield for some new public murals that will depict African American heritage in their communities. And a lot of these are African American content because we got a really nice grant from the Office of Tourism Development to pursue some of this heritage tourism product. And we held our annual meeting last year at the Marvin Theater in Pocomoke City, and we held sort of a first time ever storytelling event. It was extremely popular. We had a really good turnout and a lot of folks that said they'd never been to something like that and they would love to go again. We have also hosted sort of a membership and board appreciation event. And we were excited to, for the very first time, we got into the whole AmeriCorps volunteer program, and we have a half-time AmeriCorps volunteer. We are so lucky. He is fabulous. And we were funded for that program through the Rural Maryland Council. And I hope Charlotte and Megan are still on the call because I want to give them a huge shout out as a really terrific partner for us and rural Maryland. And then we started a computer lending program. We got a grant from the Community Foundation. We found out that there are a lot of really small nonprofits here in the Heritage area that might not even have an office. And so without an office, they're not able to get some of this office equipment. So we were able to get a grant from the Community Foundation and started this lending program. And we started with 3, and we have let out all 3 laptops and printers. So it was super successful, and we'll hope to continue to do that. And then last February, we were a sponsor in the EV symposium that took place up in Queen Anne's County on the Upper Shore. So again, partnerships are really a key piece of what we do. And let me make sure the presentation that was held earlier with the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum is really exactly what we are doing with this entire Eastern Shore implementation of a byway-wide interpretive plan for the Chesapeake Country All-American Road. Fits right in with, you know, what they're doing and what we are hoping to support and promote for folks traveling the All-American Road. The Smith Island Cake sign was a really huge success. Some of you were there probably when we unveiled the sign. This was through a private foundation, and we learned later that the folks in Southern Maryland saw this and followed up with the foundation for their own sign for the Southern Maryland stuffed ham, and they were able to do the same thing. But you know, flattery copying is the best form of flattery, so we're excited that that happened. And we started convening all of the museums and historic sites on the Lower Shore to get together and try to help them with sharing resources and funding opportunities. And some of the things that one museum finds challenging, it's really across the board with the resources that we're all looking for, volunteers and membership and funding. So we started meeting. These have been hugely popular, and out of that came a passport program that we are hoping to have printed by the end of next month. And this is all things that we are doing with funding from the Heritage Areas program. We are also currently working with Salisbury University with their Eastern Shore Regional GIS Cooperative to do a story mapping project. And again, this was a project that was funded through the Rural Maryland Council MERDAF program. And the story mapping is really allowing a visitor to use a sort of immersive map and content and see where they are and what else is in the area that they might want to do. So we chose several different layers, like farmers markets and breweries, wineries, distilleries, museums, historic sites and markers. And yeah, we'll be rolling that out probably late spring. Let's see. So I just talked a little bit about, we did receive this funding from the Heritage Areas Authority for some of the following organizations here in the Beach to Bay Heritage area. Excited, the program has just been terrific for our partners, and the funding is really crucial and instrumental to all of us down here and to these types of projects. Other funding that we've gotten include the Rural Maryland Council. With increased funding from MHAA, we were able to up our mini grant program to $25,000 annually from $15,000. And I've listed here some of the partners that have received some of that funding, including the Art League of Ocean City, the Community Players of Salisbury, the Crisfield Heritage Foundation, Delmarva Discovery Museum, Pemberton Hall, the Sturgis One Room Schoolhouse, Ratcliffe House, and Coastal Bays and Whitehaven. So we really try to spread the money equitably across the entire Lower Shore. And then here is sort of a little picture of what the passport is going to look like. It's a real passport size, and these are just some of the other sources of funding that we get. And I will say that thank you to you and your staff for always submitting letters of support. I know that I get teased that we ask for a lot of them, but they really do help. We've been really successful in getting some grant funding, and those letters of support are really instrumental in making that happen for us. Then we got a couple of awards that I thought I would share. The Salisbury Chamber of Commerce gave us the Environmental Service Award, and the partnership with the Chesapeake All-American Road won a statewide partnership award at the Maryland Tourism and Travel Summit this past year. And, that's a program that it's just so exciting because it is really one of the first efforts that involves every single county working together to promote the entire Eastern Shore through this byway. And we will all be sort of singing from the same songbook and working with all of our sites with branding, and it's going to make a huge impact. So here's what our 30th anniversary logo looks like, and we are in the midst of a certified interpretive guide training program, and this is a sold-out course for folks who are interested in becoming interpretive guides, and they do get certification from the National Association of Interpretation. So this was a huge program, and we are hosting it at the new Museum of Eastern Shore Culture, which was the Ward Museum, and it's been really well received, and we are getting a lot of great feedback from across the state, not just here on the Lower Shore. We'll be doing some more public murals, and we will be working on creating a Coastal Bays water trail with the DNR. So again, thank you all for everything you do to support the program and our efforts here on the Lower Shore. We couldn't do it without you. And that's all I have. If anybody has questions, or if Kristen, you wanted to jump back in and add anything that I may have forgotten. We're excited. We're excited about everything we're getting done down here.
Okay, Lisa, thank you very much. Senator Mounts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, Lisa, thank you. And I just wanted to bring to your attention the Waterman's Museum in Tillman Island was recently included in a group of, I think, between 5 to 7 heritage museums throughout the country by the Smithsonian Institute. And I'd encourage you to reach out to them and learn about that particular acknowledgement that they received. It's a pretty big deal. And they went about that on their own. So I wanted to make sure you're aware of that.
And that's the kind of site that we really want to make sure we showcase in this interpretive plan for the All-American Road.
If you would like some more information or need contact to the individuals operating the museum, you can contact our office. I'll be happy to get it for you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Okay, Lisa, I'm not seeing any other questions, but I want to thank you for the presentation today, and we do like to support you through the letters of support, but we also support you through the showing up, and also from the Eastern Shore perspective, along with some of the presentations we've had last week with DMOs and the economic development. You're a key part of all that, and it's a wonderful story to tell.
And I'll just say thank you to Betsy. You have a fabulous staff person there, and she's awesome.
She is awesome. I'm partial, but she's the best legislative assistant in Annapolis.
There you go.
All right.
I won't argue.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, members, I'm going to take a moment of just personal privilege from, week one of our delegation meetings through to today. UMES has been on each of the calls. I know that they made a presentation with the other university presidents, but I wanted to just give UMES and Jim maybe a couple minutes to give us an update before we end our last delegation meeting. And Jim, how about if I give you the floor for a couple minutes and share what's going on?
Yes, sir. And I want to agree as well. Betsy is awesome. And Mr. Chairman and honorable members of the delegation, good morning. We thank you very, very much. On behalf of President Anderson, who's working very hard today over in Washington, we'll see you on Monday and Tuesday at the Appropriations Capital Budget. But where did the time go? We were having coffee back in the pre-session breakfast, and here we are with 31 days to go. I just want to say, to stick with the theme, the state of the University of Maryland Eastern Shore is excellent, and it's excellent because of you. If you start to go down and look at our goals, recruitment, retention, enrollment, all the things, rankings, all the things that make our university, to everybody on the call, great. You are a partner to make happen. As I mentioned already, we're coming up with appropriations and budget and tax on Monday and Tuesday. We've been up throughout the session. I saw Delegate Hartman last night. I saw Senator Crozer working hard in committee. I see all of our Senator Mounts. I see all of you very, very hard at work. The phone rings, the text messages come in. What can we do? What do you think about this legislation? And I want to say to you that we, on behalf of President Anderson, Dr. Mock, our Provost Allen, we say thank you very much. If it says UMES, vote yes. When you sit and look at the capital budget inclusions that are there, we're very, very fortunate to have the balance of our ag research building right there, the continuation of our flood project. We were able to get phase 2 of the pharmacy building and our veterinary program, which I'm going to talk about in a very quick moment, all on the capital budget. We've been working for years to get the state to match the federal required match, the 1890 extension monies and all. And not only is it in the budget, we ask you to support it, but Governor Moore has doubled those monies this year. So we're really, really on the move. And I just want to make an invitation to the entire delegation. Perhaps during the interim, you would come down as a body, convene, have a caucus, and look at session FY25. It sounds like it's a long time from now, but let me tell you, after you come down, enjoy your time off a little bit as you continue to work around the clock. We're there for you. We're there with you. I see Kim, Alyssa, Congressman Harris. Everybody has afforded us FaceTime in Washington with President Anderson, and our folks have been there real time, and you allow us real time to hear the issues every Friday morning. And I want to say to you, what a great job. Absolutely, Mr. Chairman, and to each and every one of you. And again, on behalf of President Anderson, all the staff, students, and all at University of Maryland Eastern Shore, let's keep up the good work. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome, Jim. Thank you very much. And thank you, UMES, for being a part of these meetings. It is noticed that you're here for all of them. We appreciate your interest.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Okay, federal updates. Alyssa Hastings, let's start with you.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Chair, and congratulations on the last meeting. Such a successful and highly organized series of delegation meetings. So congratulations to you and Betsy. Obviously, she is amazing. So just wanted to shout her out. The only update I really wanted to share was just that we have extended our deadline for the congressionally directed spending portal. We've given everyone another week, given the high volume of meeting requests. So we've got a little bit more time to meet with folks. Please reach out to Kimberly and myself if you'd like to chat. We've got some availability next Wednesday. Other than that, I did want to just shout out Kim Cradwell for today is her birthday. So happy birthday, Kim. Hope you have a good birthday and rest of the weekend. And to all the members, just thank you for your hard work this session. I know that there's still a lot of work to do, but just thank you all for your leadership. And please know that our office is here for anything that you need. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And next up, birthday, Kim Cradwell. If I could figure out how to do a happy birthday song with like 50 members in this meeting, I would absolutely pull that together. But how about if we save you the burden of that and let you give the update?
I'm not thinking about them too much these days. But thank you. I couldn't have said it better myself, Alyssa. Thank you so much. These meetings every Friday are such a wealth of information, and I would be remiss if I did not thank Betsy as well. She works with us every week, and thank you to her. And once again, as Alyssa said, thank you all for your leadership, and let us know how we can be helpful. Thank you all.
Okay, so we did hear from the congressman, but do we have his representative on the call?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Mike Detmer here.
Hey, Mike.
Thank you so much. Hi there. Thanks for having the congressman, and just to echo our other federal partners here, please reach out to us if you need us. Thank you so much.
Okay, sounds good. No questions to the delegation members. Anything for the good of the order before we adjourn? So members, there is a letter. We're going to send that, or it's already been sent. If you'll take a look at it and maybe offer up any thoughts or as to whether or not we're going to send the letter. I actually don't have it handy with me. It'd be sent to Van Hollen and Carden. Looks like it's related to VAMSA investment, and would ask you to look at that. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Have a good day.
Second.